What if I told you that your words have the power to either set people free or keep them trapped in fear? How much more intentional would you be in how you communicate when you speak? Hi, I'm Lisa Vanderkwaak, certified executive speaking coach, and I'm on a mission to help you become the kind of speaker that doesn't just inform, but speaks to transform. And in this series that we're on right now, it's called the Speak Like Jesus series. I don't know about you, but I know that there's no other person on the planet that has more impact than Jesus did. And so I want to learn as much as I can from him in how I can become the kind of speaker that impacts lives. You know, there is so much in the scriptures. In fact, everything we need for life and godliness, and I believe even for speaking effectiveness and building our business, is found in the scriptures. So I want to invite you to come along as today we're going to talk about some of the speaking tips that Jesus used in Matthew chapter 6. And he didn't just use it in this, but I want to talk specifically about this to bring out this chapter to bring out some of the speaking tips he used so that you can learn how to become a transformational speaker by looking at how Jesus spoke and being able to model what he did. The way that you speak, your message, your tone, your focus can either draw people to you and it can actually draw people into clarity and truth or push them away in confusion and disillusionment. Jesus understood this better than anyone. So in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 34 is the text we're going to look at today. And we're not going to dive into it theologically, as I mentioned in previous videos. You can go back and look at our other videos in this series and be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and be notified when I go live again, because these are powerful tips that actually can help you become a very impactful speaker. You know, I've seen so many speakers struggle with this. Maybe this sounds like you. Are you passionate about your message, but something just doesn't seem to land the way you want it to when you speak? Maybe you speak, but people don't seem to engage. You pour your heart out, and it feels like there's just no connection. Have you ever found yourself wanting to give out all the wisdom you know in one message in hopes that maybe they'll get it, that something will ignite in your audience? Have you ever done that? But in the end, all it does is actually just overwhelm them with information and they leave feeling more confused and overwhelmed. I know, I've been there. And then there's the fear of not saying the right thing, fear of not being taken seriously, or the fear that your words won't have the impact you desire. And even the fear of missing words that you put on paper. Jesus faced audiences filled with doubt and fear and worry all the time. He was never sure how they were going to respond, how they were going to react. But you know what? It didn't matter. He didn't look to that. That was not his gauge as to whether or not he was on the right track. But what he did do is that he did use very skillful techniques to communicate powerful and scriptural truths to help people to bring about change and transformation. He communicated in such a way that he aimed for transformation of the heart. So instead of overwhelming his audiences with facts and figures, he used techniques such as contrast and metaphors and analogies and storytelling, which I'm sure you're familiar with. All of these things helped him to cut straight to the heart. And because of that, people leaned in, they listened, and they left changed, one way or the other. So if you're tired of speaking and feeling like your words aren't moving people, like they just aren't making a big impact, then this is for you. Stay tuned because you are going to learn some techniques that can help you become a very impactful speaker. But here's the good news I want you to know. When you learn to communicate like Jesus, everything changes. You will never listen to another speaker again the same way, nor will you show up and approach speaking the same. You see, Jesus didn't just preach, he painted pictures with his words. And in Matthew 6, in this section alone, verses 19 to 34, he used contrast a lot to help people think. For example, he compared earthly treasures with storing up heavenly treasures. If you remember that passage where it says, "Do not store up things that rust and decay on earth, but store up heavenly treasures." He compared the two, the focus of where you're putting your value. And in that, he made a point. Wherever your heart is, there is your treasure. The things that you value will be shown in how you act on earth and the things that you focus on. He illustrated also how the eyes of the heart determine determine whether or not you walk in the light or in the darkness, and how much truth that you allow in. He then made a contrast between worrying about material needs compared to trusting in God's provision. What is the difference when you put your focus on worrying about the things like food and clothing compared to trusting God to be your source of provision for all these things, and instead focusing on trusting God and letting all these less important things come into your life? So these weren't just abstract ideas that Jesus was presenting. He actually gave people something to visualize, something to feel. And he usually had a specific point, and all of this section was centered around this point, that wherever your heart is, there is your treasure. And based on what you are valuing, where you put your treasure or what you treasure will determine the outcome of your life. The fruit of your life will be seen. He didn't just tell them, though, what to believe. Here's the other thing that is really important as a speaker. He showed them their own struggles and then invited them to examine their own motives and to shift their perspective. You see, as a speaker, when you learn to use contrast to highlight choices and consequences and speak to the heart rather than the head, rather than just the head, and ask questions that lead people to self-discovery, and learn how to paint vivid images with your words, you won't be the kind of speaker that just informs. You will speak to transform. And this is what makes the difference between a speaker who is simply heard and a speaker who moves people into action. Because let's just face it, without activation, there can be no transformation. Without invitation, there can be no transformation. So imagine stepping onto a stage knowing that your words are going to resonate deeply, that you have intentionally created and practiced and prepared in a way that you know not just how to deliver content, but to connect deeply with your audience at a much more heart level. Imagine seeing the audience's eyes light up with realization, their hearts shifting because you spoke in a way that allowed them to see themselves more accurately in the analogies or stories that you presented. That's the power of speaking like Jesus. It elicits some kind of response. Now, I will say, there are people who are not going to like what you have to say. Don't be deterred by them. They're not your people. They're not the people that you are speaking to that day. If you do your job and focus on developing the skills that you need to become the very best speaker and get yourself in front of people, those who need to hear what you have to say will be drawn to you. So here's your challenge. The next time you speak, whether on a stage in person or online, whether you're in a meeting or a conversation, pause and ask yourself, am I just giving information, or am I actually inviting them into transformation? So this week, I want you to try using contrast like Jesus did. Instead of just making a statement, show the difference between two paths. Instead of just telling people what to do, help them to see and feel the impact of their choices. Watch how this simple shift brings your message to life. And if you're ready to take your speaking skills to the next level and learn how to breathe life into every audience that you speak to, I invite you to drop a comment down below with the word impact if you're ready to explore what it would look like for you and I to be intentional about working together and helping you become a transformational speaker. Make sure you like and subscribe and get notified each time I go live so that you can learn all the speaking tips that you need to apply to become a more transformational speaker. Thanks for tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. As you're listening today, you may have felt prompted to say, I want to become a much better speaker. I want to be able to speak with confidence, clarity, and transformational impact. I want to invite you to check out the link in the comments below, wherever you're listening to this. Your voice is an instrument of transformation and needs to be heard, so let it be heard.